Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have our recurring co-host Angelina on today to talk about satellite and drone hacking. Angelina, thank you for joining us again.
Hey Kody, thanks so much for having me on the show again. It's great to be here.
Well, all right, so we just got back from DEF CON, and this was your first
Yep.
ever DEF CON, right?
Yeah, it was super exciting. It was great meeting a lot of people in the InfoSec community and also being in the Hacker Warehouse booth and getting to sell some of our products there.
Yeah, so after designing the Meow Mixer board originally for a class in Montana, we got to take it to DEF CON, and Angelina got to kind of like get to see how people were reacting to it in real life. What was your impression of DEF CON as like a first timer there? Like especially being behind like the merch booth and getting to like talk to so many people who were going there, I guess to buy stuff or like to find out what hacker culture is all about.
Yeah, it was great getting to see the breadth of all the people there. Yeah, there's so many villages. I got to stop by. The aerospace hacking one was really phenomenal. Um, yeah, just getting to meet the people there was one of the best parts of the DEF CON experience for me. There was a lot of talented researchers there, professionals in many different fields, and it was just a phenomenal experience getting to explore so many different projects people were working on. And yeah, overall, it was a great first experience for me.
Did anybody recognize you?
Um, I think a few people in the aerospace village recognize some of the work um, because of the previous open source projects I've worked on. Um, and yeah, I remember a few people saw the live streams in the past, recognized me at the Hacker Warehouse booth. But yeah, it was great. I got to meet a lot of great people there, so I had a great experience.
That's really cool. So not only did you get to go to DEF CON, but also somebody recognized you at the hacker conference. So I guess one could say your reputation preceded you at the hacker conference. That's really cool. Cool. Well, yeah, we had a lot of fun at DEF CON, and now we're starting to plan some new things. So after getting back, we also designed our infrared badge. I don't have one handy or very close to me, but we made a kind of laser tag style badge that a lot of people really enjoyed. We ended up selling out of them. It was really cool. And the journey was quite something. Angelina was one of the people that worked on the website for the game and then also worked on the actual hardware itself. So one of the questions we have this week is related to the badge. Somebody on our Discord community, let me see if I can pull it up really quickly, was just asking whether or not we had, here it is, any documentation. So like did we do we have any way of them being able to actually like use this again, or is this something that's just kind of a one-off? So yeah, for the Nugget PCB, are there any docs on the pinouts to reuse the NeoPixels and IR setup for new Arduino code? We should do this. We kind of forgot to do it, or rather, we were waiting until the end of the conference to release this, just to make it not that easy to reverse engineer, but like a lot of people now have this, and it's a pretty cool setup. You can actually control TVs and other stuff with it. You can capture IR codes, and it's got some fun NeoPixels on it. So yeah, we should totally do that. But Angelina, do you want to maybe show off the website that you made for the game?
Yeah, of course. So
So
it was
just
Nugget.quest, right?
exactly. And if you want to, by the way, if you want to join this Discord community, our nugget.lol domain has been unblocked. It was previously reported as a spam domain, and it took like 2 weeks to get it unreported. I don't know. It was so annoying. So anyway, if you want to join this Discord community, you can always do so by going to nugget.lol. Or at least for now, you can do it by going to nugget.lol. And of course, we'll get your questions answered and everything on the stream. All right, I'll turn mine off. And then, yeah, if you want to show it off, we can talk a little bit about what the game was.
Yeah, so this is the website for the game. Essentially, it was just like a back add-on for the USB Nugget, and we just had a fun laser tag style quest game with puzzles and a lot of fun. missions for people to embark on during the conference.
Yeah, so I remember Brandon went around and hid some stickers around that had like power up codes you could unlock by like finding them after getting clues from the website. So if you managed to grab one of these, you would go to the website, it would give you clues on where you could go in the conference to get additional power ups, and you could also blast other badges while you were there and turn them to your color. We had a lot of feedback on the art as well, which was really, really cute. And a lot of people didn't even care that it was a blaster. They just loved the cute art on it. So this was a really fun project. We made it super cute, super beginner friendly, and it got a lot of people who normally might not have been excited to really, really want it because of how adorable it was. So this was a fun project. It was a great conversation starter for a lot of people. And we got to talk to a lot of people who bought one and enjoyed it. So yes, we will be releasing more information about how you can hack this and use it yourself. I will do an update on this later, but we'll probably release it on our GitHub repository and maybe include a link also on this nugget.quest website, which I'm very proud of owning that domain.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how the game turned out. And yeah, there were quite a few people wearing the badge at the end of the conference. So it was great getting to see how people were interacting and interfacing with the Nugget.
So speaking of DEF CON, someone is asking if you did the Hack the Sat CTF.
Yeah, so this year I was thinking of doing the Hackasat CTF, but then a lot of things I just got pretty busy. But in the past, I've used a lot of the Hackasat CTF resources to learn and inform my satellite research processes. So it was kind of a bummer that I missed the deadline for this year, but next year I will for sure be embarking on that CTF. It's a really great way to learn a lot about satellite hacking. Yeah, most of when I was learning satellite cybersecurity was just doing the CTFs they were hosting and then watching through like video tutorials because they have really high quality resources. So if anybody's interested in learning about satellite cybersecurity, I would really refer you to the Hackasat resources. They have like a huge GitHub repository with a bunch of resources as well. And their CTFs, they can be a bit tricky, but some of the beginner ones are pretty straightforward.
So the one that I saw also like heavily like marketed at DEF CON was Moonlighter. I just shared my screen and this is like a exploded view of the satellite. Did you get a chance to check that out or did you hear about what this was?
Yeah, so Moonlighter is a satellite. Um, I think they sent out into space in order to. It's like a payload in space that's an active CTF environment. So anybody who wants to like simulate a ground-based attack or a ground-based exploit on a satellite can do so. I think they were hosting multiple CTFs and tournaments at DEF CON utilizing the Moonlighter, which is really cool because there's been nothing like it in the past. And it's great to have a satellite in space that people could try to actively hack.
Yeah, that is really cool. I remember they had like a giant like rotating like view of the satellite and like they allowed you to go over, and one of my friends who apparently was like a contractor that like worked on this project like managed to recover like video footage like from the camera of the satellite as it was flying. That has to be a pretty incredible feeling to actually like look down at the earth like from the satellite that you're hacking and know that it's like really up there as opposed to like a simulated satellite, which would be a lot less
Yeah,
exciting.
definitely.
Cool. All right. So that pretty much closes out DEF CON. It was a lot of fun. I still have stuff scattered all over my house from all the rapid assembly and other stuff we did. We had somebody come in recently and they were like, what are all these syringes around? Like, what is this for? And I had to explain to them that this is surface mount solder paste that you use the syringe to put in very tiny places. And then you like bake it with an oven or like a heat gun in order to solder electronics. But a couple people who were visiting were like, why are there syringes everywhere? What's going on? What's this weird metal stuff in these syringes? We're like, oh yeah, we were doing PCB assembly here, and that's how you do surface mount stuff. So still a lot of stuff to clear away from DEF CON, but it was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. So you can expect to see probably all of us back next year. But yeah, so Angelina, you are also going to be doing some classes coming up. And I mentioned this only because the sales for the online version of this class have really picked up in the last day. I think it is like almost halfway sold out. So there's still a lot of spaces available, but Angelina is going to be doing an online version of her satellite hacking class that she previously held at Null Space Labs. So this is great because that class was absolutely totally sold out, and I had to like lower the cap on tickets because I just didn't think it would sell out, and I set it for 30, and there's no way that Null Space Labs would have like held 30 people comfortably for that class. So we decided to do an online version because so many people asked and it was so popular. And honestly, most of the things that were done in that class could have been done remotely. Angelina didn't actually bring a satellite, to the class. So since you're
Yeah.
doing stuff in like Python and following examples, this is something that can totally be done online. So we have opened up a class. It's coming up really soon, right? On the 27th, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
It
cool.
should be this Sunday, yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming up pretty soon. So if you want to check out this class, I will drop the link in the chat. It is under the Cyber Weapons Lab LA meetup group, as well as the Null Space Labs meetup group. And you can buy tickets at the universe page once you find those events. So really exciting. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about, and maybe if you've got any demos or anything to share, I would love to see.
Yeah, so it's going to be very similar to the in-person satellite hacking class I did at Null Space Labs, but it's going to be using a couple of the tools I released previously. One of the tools I created is called SatIntel, which does open source intelligence for satellites. So we'll be using that tool alongside other tools such as APT decoders and um, transmission decoders to really understand satellite reconnaissance. Yeah, so it's going to be very beginner friendly. All you need is a computer with Golang installed. So there's not a lot of bootstrapping involved in the process of enrolling in the class. We're just going to be going over common satellite attacks, techniques such as GNSS spoofing, GPS spoofing. We'll also be going over reconnaissance and techniques used by researchers in order to mitigate and avoid the risks of satellite vulnerabilities.
Awesome. So just so everyone can find it, I'm going to put this in the chat pretty much immediately, but here is the workshop page, description, and then here you can find the link to buy tickets, which is right here. And I think we set the cap on this to like 30 to 40 people. I don't know. I think like 30 to 40 people. We don't want it to get too out of hand. So this one has a limited number of seats. So if you want to check it out, there will be, I anticipate a lot of really fun things to learn from this. And the requirements, a computer with Golang installed. So was this Python last time, or was it Golang last time too?
Yeah, so it was Python last time because we weren't using the tool I created. We were using a different tool,
Mm.
um, which was like a random Python script that I wrote specifically for that class. But I think this time around, I wanted to use my own tool to demonstrate reconnaissance because last time the interface wasn't very intuitive, but this time with my tool, it's already pre-built and people can use it and it's already robust enough that it has all the capabilities of the last one and it makes more sense. And that tool that I built was developed using Golang rather than Python. So we'll be using Golang primarily for this class.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a question. If I wanted to attend the class and I wanted to use something like Google Cloud Shell, for example, to be able to like just like spin up a little virtual machine and then like probably already has Go on it, or I can install Go really, really easily. Would that be
Right.
workable?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All you
Cool.
need to download is the source code and then it should be good to go.
Also a question. Will this class be offered again?
Yeah, if it has enough traction and enough attention, a lot of people seems to be really interested in the topic, and there's not a lot of online classes out there, hardly any at all, I think, that talk
Yeah.
specifically on the subject matter. So, yeah, if you're not able to make that specific date, we'll most likely host this class again.
Yeah.
And we'll also be doing more um, classes in the aerospace sector as well. We're doing a drone security one, I think, the week after this week.
Oh
So we'll
yeah.
probably be doing an online version of that class as well.
Yes, so that's true. There's two upcoming workshops. The second one is coming up in the Los Angeles area on September 3rd. So, Angelina, I meant to tell you this. I might actually be in town when this happens. So if I am, then I'll definitely stop by this. But otherwise, Angelina is going to be hosting a drone hacking workshop at Null Space Labs. This one, I think we're going to do this again as an online workshop. So stay tuned. We may be I'm not sure if it's like smart to do it like the same day or like if we might just like trail it a week or something. But either way, this one also I think is a good candidate for being an online class because some of this is analyzing sorry, the cat is grabbing my leg. Hi. Um analyzing like an SD card from like a down drone or something like that. Like it really allows you to still do it remotely, but like kind of simulate as though you'd like found a drone that was like either lost or disabled or otherwise crashed, something like that. So yes, if you want to talk a little bit about what is going on in this class.
Yeah, of course. So for this class, we'll be using a bunch of available online tools. So you'll need to have a computer with Python installed because we'll be using primarily Python scripts and programs. And essentially, it's just a beginner based introduction into drone security with a bunch of um, labs interspersed throughout the workshop. We'll be covering drone systems and UAV systems and attack surfaces with intrinsic to UAVs. We'll also be getting into drone reconnaissance, such as tracking and identification using online tools um, and other alternative options, such as radio. We'll be going over ground control systems and how they can be hijacked and manipulated. And we'll be going over vulnerabilities and how you can mitigate those vulnerabilities. I just noticed you have a cat on your table, Kody. That is adorable.
I'm so sorry. He really wants to. Oh no no no! Don't step on that. Okay, yes, he really wants attention. Right. So hello everyone. This is Pompey. He doesn't like being left alone and he likes to participate. So he's taken over engineering my setup right now. And so far he hasn't managed to disconnect my camera, but he is working on it. So if I vanish for a second, it's probably no, it's probably because he tipped over my coffee onto the computer or typed out a message to the chat. I'm so sorry. That was very distracting. But yes, he was not going to go away. Yeah, that's 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. where I live. Damn. Yeah, just don't worry. Just wait for another workshop. We're considering
Yeah.
doing a workshop on East Coast time, which would be please stop. Which would be a lot earlier for us on the West Coast, but still, you know, like probably more reasonable for those of you that would be asleep usually during the times we do on the West Coast. So, yeah, don't worry, we will do another workshop and it will work out. Some tips for beginners for satellite hacking. Well, Angelina, that would be your purview. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would recommend going over a few of the Hackasat resources. They have an entire GitHub repository just full of resources and videos you could check out. I also created a website, I think a few months ago, that has a bunch of aerospace hacking related resources. I would recommend you check out that website because it has like a bunch of resources covering like everything from UAV systems to satellite systems to orbital trackers and OSINT tools. So I would recommend looking into that. And then once you have the skill set or the conceptual understanding, I would recommend you develop a project yourself using a programming language you're familiar with. It doesn't have to be Python or Golang. But I do recommend Python for beginners if you're just starting off in the field. And just make a basic script that has to do something with satellite hacking. I remember the first project I worked on was a satellite um, orbital predictor, and I just made a few calls to a few APIs and displayed that information and then did a few calculations. I would recommend getting a, a bit of a background and a familiarity with a few um, aerospace related concepts such as orbital mechanics. It's really important you have that down. So make sure you know like what eccentricity of an orbit is, inclination, declination, and get some of the terms down because that's used all the time. Understand the TLE format. But other than that, there's not much to it other than just doing like a bunch of CTFs and starting up your own projects.
Yeah. Thank you so much for dropping that, Pompey. One big shout out. Oops, I clicked on the wrong comment. Yes, there we go. India just landed on the moon. So congratulations. You guys also beat Russia. I mean, they were the Soviet Union before, but you guys beat Russia by, like they just tried that like like last week and crashed. So congratulations to India for being on the moon. That's what I got.
Great. Yeah, the first country to land on the South Pole of the moon. That's amazing.
Yeah. What is your website link, Angelina?
Yeah, let me drop it into the chat right now. Or I can just share my screen. Kody, is it okay if I can share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay, cool. The website isn't loading up for me right now, but it should work. It's, if you guys see me zooming in, it's tools.g4lxy.space. And it just has a bunch of aerospace related hacking resources. You guys can also contribute to the GitHub repository I have here. We've had a couple of contributions from people like Elisa Sykes, who has a lot of experience within the security realm, and anybody can contribute to the resources list we have here. I have to figure out what's going on with the site, but it should be up and running again soon. I don't know what happened to
it. Isn't that great when someone asks you for a link to something and then you check it and it's immediately not working and you don't know why? Yeah, that happens to me a lot. That's how I felt last week with the nugget.lol forwarding link. A bunch of people were talking about how hard it was to get to our like Discord server, and then it turns out, it was down and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked for it because I did not know it was down.
All right. So from the chat, what is the best certificate for cybersecurity? I don't have any certificates, so I would not be the best qualified person to ask that. Angelina, I think, also doesn't have any. Do you have any certificates, Angelina, related to cybersecurity?
I had the opportunity to get a few certificates, but I haven't. I was going to get the CCNA because CompTIA offered it for free for me, but yeah, I haven't embarked on any certificates yet.
Yeah. I almost got a routing and switching certificate from Cisco. But yeah, no, other than that, like I don't have any certificates. So I will withhold my opinion on that question. Although that is a question we get a lot. So whenever we have a guest that does have some certificates, I like to have them sound off on that. So we will come back to that question. All right. Is there anything you'd like to show off, Angelina? We have about 30 minutes or so left before we have to cut off. So are there any tools that you've worked on that you want to show how they work?
Yeah, of course. So during DEF CON, I visited the biohacking village, and I was just super impressed in general, by the village and the projects they were working on. I think biology is a huge passion of mine. I've been doing a lot of research in it, I guess more recently, but biology in relation to cybersecurity has been a really fascinating intersection between two things I'm passionate about. So I wanted to pursue a project recently that kind of tied those passions together. So I worked on making let me show my screen. So this is I made a malicious URL detection model using a neural network and then optimized it using genetic algorithms. So in computer science, there's a subfield of algorithms called, I think they're called biological algorithms, and then within that, there's something called genetic algorithms. And essentially, it uses the concept of um, evolution. So Darwin's theory of evolution believes that like you can have specific traits that make make you more likely to pass down your genes to the next generation. So genetic algorithms utilizes that and has something called a fitness function. So you can add specific numerical values to things in order to optimize AI models. So what I did was I made a neural network to detect for malicious URLs. I'm sure you guys had a fair amount of encounters with like random like texts or SMS messages with ridiculous phishing links like this. And it's really hard sometimes to detect for malicious links because they're usually generated on the spot. What attackers do is they have a they rent out a domain um, for a few days or before, and then they attach some kind of like phishing scheme to it, and then they delete it after it gets suspended or flagged. So there's a constant generation of malicious URLs, and that's a problem. And that's where machine learning can be tied in order to detect for bad URLs that hackers can exploit in order to steal your credentials. And biology, surprisingly, can help with that. So, what I did was I worked on developing a neural network that detects for um, bad, I guess, phishing links, and and um, in order to optimize the neural network, I used genetic algorithms. So, um, if you scroll down here in the GitHub repository, I kind of made a high level architecture visualization of what it looks like. So the neural network itself doesn't use any genetic algorithms. It's the optimization. So neural networks, they're really, really good for classification tasks. But the huge problem with them is with something called hyperparameters. Hyperparameters for a neural network, um, it's hard to find, like for example, like the number of nodes to use within a neural network, because a neural network is a machine learning model that's based off of neurons in the brain. And information, like the nodes here in the middle, you can put on them in order to optimize or better classify information to get a better output in the end. However, a neural network doesn't know how to configure itself. So you need to find the best way for it to configure itself. And that's where genetic algorithms are really, really great, because genetic algorithms are really great at finding um, parameters that can be passed into a neural network so it becomes as optimal and as efficient as possible. So I had a lot of fun with this project. It was a pain. Pain just to get the model to work out, because I've done AI projects in the past. Like I did a ADSB plane spoofing detection project, but it's been a while since I got my feet wet in Python again in relation to machine learning. So I had a lot of fun building this project, and it was cool
So
to explore.
one question
Yeah.
was, what data is it training on?
Yeah, so there was a data set that was uploaded on Kaggle that has, oh my goodness, I think it has 100,000 URLs, and 50,000 of which is malicious, 50,000 of which is safe. And then I use that data set in order to train the model.
Okay, so based on previously discovered malicious URLs versus known like whitelisted URLs,
Yeah,
trying to train it. And of course, there's going to be some fuzziness there because I imagine like the route of these URLs um, is becoming malicious could be different. Like some of them could be purchased with the express purpose of like becoming malicious, so they're like, they all kind of follow a pattern, and some of them could probably be like breached, acquired, or otherwise, like taken over after being created
Yeah.
for legitimate purposes. So like there's probably a little
Yeah.
bit of like fuzziness in there, but like detecting the underlying pattern here and giving a level of probability as to whether or not it's a malicious URL based on the patterns we've already seen is kind of the idea then, right?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
So here's a question. Have you engaged in any form of hyperparameter optimization? It sounds like yes.
Yes. Yeah. The whole point of the project was to use a genetic algorithm to optimize the hyperparameters for a neural network. Yeah. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of terms of machine learning can be off putting, but this model that I put together pretty much explains it all. You use a genetic algorithm and then you optimize the hyperparameters over time. And then once you get the best hyperparameter set, um, you use that neural network and then use that to classify your models. So yeah, training this thing took forever because for each like genetic so I had in genetic algorithms, you have a bunch of generations, and then those generations you alter them and you mutate them over time in order to find the optimal output. So for each generation, you have to generate an entire neural network model. So it took, I think, a few hours to train and find the most optimal model. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think this is what was a very I really enjoy putting things together that make no sense and then see what comes out of it. And this was exactly that. Um, yeah, I was just like, you know what? Why not apply biology and try to find a way to optimize a computational task? And it ended up working out pretty well. It has like a 99% accuracy rate, which I'm pretty happy with.
So, all right. So here's my question. Could this be applied to something else that has a lot of like training data available? So let's say that you and I want to make we want to do that cool thing that every technology does where they create a racket, where they create the problem and then also the solution. So we want to
Mhm.
make not just a deauth detector, but like a deauthor detector. So like just detect anything
Mm.
running that software and be able to classify it as like, oh, there's a Wi-Fi hacking tool in the area. If we took then an ESP8266 Wi-Fi deauthor and like flashed it
Yeah.
on a couple different pieces of hardware and then sent out packets from it and created Wireshark like capture filters to just capture emissions
Mhm.
from that. And we would get all those like subtle nuances of like optional elements in the packets and other
Yeah.
things, and then fed it to this versus like just other, like neutral like network traffic, and tried to use the sort of optimization to figure out like the best way of detecting the difference between a normal packet versus a packet generated by something
Yeah.
running this program. Do you think that it could be effective for tasks like that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially if you're doing some kind of packet analysis where um, uh, a DOF packet, like it can be a little bit more nuanced to analyze to figure out what specifically is a DOF packet and what's like a general benign packet. Using a neural network model like this could be helpful, and then optimizing it using an algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking if you wanted to be able to detect like either a specific program or a specific chipset and a variety of packets, so like beacon frames and other things like that, there's
Yeah,
subtleties on the Wi-Fi end of things where a neural network would be really good at smelling those differences, whereas a person would have a
yeah,
harder time. So seems interesting.
yeah. Neural networks are really great for filtering through noise. So I like that idea.
All right, so here's one question that again, well, I guess it's more of a statement, but it goes over my head. If you already have a data set, it's not hard to overfit. What does that mean?
It's not hard to overfit. Yeah, that's true. So in order to mitigate overfitting for this project, you can do a couple of things. So it's a little bit more of altering the values in the genetic algorithm, not the neural network itself. So within a genetic algorithm, the variables you can modify are the generations, and then the number of epochs. So like the number of times you can like run through the model. Um, so just making sure those values are put into place and optimized is the way I mitigated overfitting for this project.
What is overfitting, by the way, for people who don't do a lot of AI stuff?
Yeah, overfitting is like when you overtrain a model. So when you're training a model, you have like a rigid specified data set, and you don't. When you overfit something, you train the model so much to the point where it can only classify the things that are in the data set. So if you give like
Mm.
a new input, so like let's say you're trying to classify between a cat and like a dog or something, and you have a data set full of cats and dogs. But if you overtrain it, it will only recognize, it will be able to only classify things within the data set. So like let's say I have a picture of a cat and a cat from another source, like I just Google an image of a cat and gave it to the neural network. It might think it's a dog because it's so hyper fixated on the training data set that it can't apply its intelligence to another input data source.
Okay, I understand. So at a certain point, you train it so much that it loses that like fuzzy conceptual understanding and instead goes
Yeah,
straight to like an exact match,
yeah,
which is not what we're looking for.
yeah.
All right, cool, 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 cool. So a lot of good questions. Thank you to everybody in the audience for that. So we've got maybe 15 minutes left. Are there any other things from either of your workshops you wanted to show off, or any other projects?
Um, I've been doing a little bit more satellite research stuff, so I can go over that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I feel like a lot of
Right.
people feel like they're going to get arrested for even trying to look up satellite hacking. So that might be why this is like such like a good beginner like intro thing, because if you can make it feel like you're allowed to learn this sort of thing, then a lot of people are actually interested.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the purpose for the workshops I'm doing currently um, is just to make it more friendly for people because, and like the main point of my workshops is not to teach you how to make a satellite drop out of the sky. Not at all. Although that would be fun. Yeah, but we don't want artificial meteorites. Um, yeah, but by learning the techniques and the attacks behind satellite hacking and how they're orchestrated, you can better learn how to protect it. So all the projects I've worked on, um, I guess, are more in the blue team zone. So just, or I guess, or you can do whatever you want with it. It's more of a reconnaissance focused system. But yeah, so for some of the projects I'm working on,
Yeah,
I think
sorry,
I
we have one
posted
question in
this.
the chat that just says, "Can you
Oh,
tell more
okay.
about this big antenna you making?"
Big antenna. I'm making a few antennas, as you can see. Yeah, yeah. So I assembled two antennas yesterday. One was a HYS Yagi antenna, which I'm interested in doing a couple of like satellite reconnaissance things with. Also, you can do radio astronomy with this, so I'm going to be definitely looking into that. And then the other one was, um, oh wait, sorry, I've got the message. I got them mixed up. So I'm doing radio astronomy and satellite reconnaissance stuff for the DirecTV 4K dish antenna, which is like the big, chunky like antenna I just have um, laying around, and then the more this one here, it's a directional Yagi antenna, and I'm thinking of just pairing it up with the UV5R, which is like a handheld radio. A bunch of people have done this just to do general international space station tracking. So you have to figure out where the space station is going to be passing over you, and then just tune into the frequency of the space station, and you can listen in to what they're communicating to each other. I would recommend beginners if you're trying to get more into like physical satellite hacking getting into antenna and radio stuff, I would recommend starting off with the Yagi antenna because it's super easy to set up. It costs less than $100 for all the equipment. All you need is a UV5R handheld radio and the Yagi antenna. Um, yeah, and then I'm also making my own custom antenna, which is a turnstile antenna. I was really interested because I was looking into like a bunch of different satellite antenna designs and which one's the most optimal. And I found the turnstile design was really simple and straightforward, but also had good optimization capabilities. So that's another project I'm working on, but it probably won't be released until a few months later. But I've been
Um,
having a lot of fun doing this stuff. It's a lot of
Here's a
fun.
question: have you ever made a helical antenna for satellites?
Helical. Yes, I've considered. Not yet. Well, I've considered making it in the past. There's one video I watched. I forgot the designation for it, but helical antennas tend to be pretty optimized, and I'm pretty sure it's omnidirectional. So you don't have it's not directional like an Yagi antenna where you have to point it up and everywhere. You can just have it laying around and capture signals. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And another question is to go after low orbit or geosync satellites for those antennas.
Ooh, good question. I haven't decided on that.
DirecTV
Yeah.
is geosynced, right?
Yes.
So it would certainly be capable of going
Yeah.
out to them.
Yeah. And then yeah, that's a good point. And then I could customize the turnstile antenna to sync into like another type of satellite.
No, that's cool. That's extremely cool. I have so my experience with this is just mostly making like Wi-Fi antennas and like attempting to see what the range I can get on them is, and that was about like 5-6 miles, like direct line of sight with like a Yagi or even a parabolic antenna. So we did an episode on that one time, but we didn't manage like to a satellite. So that's really cool. You'll have to let me know how that works out, and also like what other gear you're using along with it, because a lot of people are curious
Yeah.
about like SDRs and other things they can use as a beginner. Do you have any recommendations on like software defined radios or anything else like to get started with like satellite tracking or like radio stuff involving satellites?
Yeah, I think the best SDR I can start off with is the SDR. I've had a lot of success with it in the past. Um, but if you want to get really fancy, you can use something like the Hack RF and do some tuning and frequency analysis with that. But RTL
Yeah.
SDR, I think, is the best beginner resource.
Yeah, the RTL SDR is also something that I have. They are so cheap. They are wonderful. They're like $30 or so to get started with this. And RTL SDR store. Yeah. So just showing them off. I'm trying to find like a picture of them. Ah, yes. There's different versions out there. I highly recommend getting one of these that has like an aluminum like heatsink body. There's, as I said, there's different versions out there. I've had plastic ones, I've had metal ones. The number one thing that's annoying about these is that the frequency starts to drift as they get hot. So if you don't keep them cool, or rather if they start to really heat up, like the frequency will start like changing on them. I remember there's a couple people who were doing this really cool Raspberry Pi like exfiltration thing at DEF CON one time, and they were having such problems with it because the RTL SDRs were heating up and like drifting all over the place for like frequency. So these are super cool though. They're able to receive all kinds of stuff. Do you remember the story behind these, like what they were originally, like before they became so popular?
No, I haven't heard the origin story.
They were like I think they were like a Eastern European like TV tuner chipset that like ended up being like perfect for receiving all this other stuff. So in the beginning, like they were like very standard like pieces of like Eastern European like TV like decoding like hardware. And then they turn into this thing that's become incredibly popular amongst like radio people because it's just incredibly versatile, incredibly cheap, and there's like a million of them out there. So they're really easy to find.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. It's awesome.
Ah, yes, James got it. Yes, it was originally a TV tuner. And then they kind of took off in popularity amongst the hacker community once people found out how cheap they were and how much they could do. I will say myself, I actually found out about one of the worst like fires, like forest fires in LA, since when I was living there, because I was just scanning around on radio channels and I heard like frantic like fire, like air control, like doing dumps on this fire. So it is really useful to have one of these, even for just scanning around on different frequencies and seeing like who's broadcasting. Yeah, these are fantastic. And if you can reach all the way out to, space, that's a pretty good incentive too. Do you remember like roughly what frequencies this can hear on? It's like up
Ooh.
to, it's not all the way up to Wi-Fi. So no, it doesn't go to like 2.4 gigahertz, but it's still.
Yeah, it's still capable of getting a bunch of satellite frequencies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
trying to
remember off the top of my head.
Here it is. All right, cool. 52 to 22 megahertz. Sorry, 2200 megahertz. Yeah. Um, all right, that's pretty decent range. So like there's a lot of stuff like within this. It looks like some of these tuners are only capable, this one's like more sub gigahertz, but the rest of these are able to go, over 1 gigahertz, which is cool. Yeah, so that's awesome. Lots of really interesting things you can find.
Definitely.
Buzzkill for a nice hot day on these poor SDRs. Yeah, no, I have done some projects very early on when I was doing null byte articles on how you could use these combined with software to decode digital radios, and I was like listing in on like dispatch for like the metro buses in LA and stuff. But yeah, as they heat up, like the frequency will start to drift, and it becomes difficult to lock onto anything as that happens. All right. I think this is a recommendation for an antenna. Omni pattern antenna donut is great for even pickup if you keep the peak gain in plane with the orbit of the satellite.
Got it. Thanks for input. Appreciate it.
And James has apparently used this to listen to casinos, fire, ambulance, airplanes, ham, yeah, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So, funny story. When we were at DEF CON, there was a bomb scare there where everybody was uncertain as to whether or not the conference was going to open up the next day. And I noticed there were groups of people who were just clustered in the hotel, like sitting in the hallways, just listening on their radios. And it turns out that the casino security, who was reporting on the situation to their own staff, like was not using any sort of, they were just using like encoded radio, not encrypted or anything. So all the hackers were just kind of listening in on the situation as it unfolded and getting the latest updates and sharing it. So we didn't need press releases. We were tuned in the entire time, just hearing things as it developed. So yeah, radio frequency stuff is super useful. A lot of people are into it because it gives you the ability to hear all kinds of stuff going on, and it's a lot of fun. So RTL SDR definitely recommended for that. And then yes, if you are fancy, you can always get like a hack RF or something, but those are a lot more expensive. All right. So we've got now like 2-3 minutes. Anything you want to say before we sign off for this week, Angelina?
I'm pretty much exhausted with the projects I have available to talk about, but if any of you guys want to learn more about satellite hacking, I would check out the online satellite cybersecurity workshop I have going on this Sunday. If you want to make it in person at Null Space Labs, I'm hosting a drone security workshop the week after this week, and we'll also be probably doing a online version of that class as well.
Yeah, and I have put the link in the chat if you guys want to check it out. You can also find it at Cyber Weapons Lab meetup group. Both of those events are going to be listed there, so you can come by, check it out in person at Null Space Labs on the 3rd, or you can check out our upcoming August 27th online workshop to learn more. Angelina, thank you so much for coming by and talking to us about all the various things you're interested in. Like the fact that we got to talk about like AI optimization and like satellite hacking and drone hacking, like all in one session is pretty diverse. So really cool to get all these people in here talking about cool stuff. And definitely check out Angelina's workshop if you are interested in these topics more. And of course, once your website is up, you can also check out her website as well. Correct. Hopefully, it'll be up again soon.
Yep, I'll get working on it now.
Okay, cool. So, also, per always, a big shout out to Varonis for hosting this stream every week. They let us spend a lot of time on this. And if you appreciate the stream and you want to help us out and let Varonis know that you're watching, go ahead and go to varonis.com/Kody. This time, com/KODY. That's me. We have a session going on tomorrow talking about Salesforce. So if you checked out one of the last workshops that I did, or sorry, one of the last streams that I did, I actually went through and I did the first of the Varonis CTF challenges. This was a Salesforce focused challenge where you learn how to use tools like OWASP Zap to actually break in and steal data from poorly configured Salesforce instances. This was actually surprisingly easy. So if you're interested in Salesforce security, then you should definitely check this out, because I was shocked at how easy it was to go in and start doing some of this cool cloud hacking stuff. The Varonis security team is always doing sneaky and cool research around Salesforce cloud security. So you can check this out here. This is actually tomorrow and it is free. So check that out, or at least go ahead and go to the link to let them know you're watching the live stream. And we will see all of you next week. Thanks again, Angelina. And thanks to everybody on the stream for hanging out, asking great questions. Yeah, and we'll see you next time on Friday for our new stream. See you then. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.